Welcome to the Sandwich Generation podcast, a resource for adults balancing the dual responsibilities of raising children and caring for aging parents. Whether you're helping your parents downsize, explore real estate options, navigating caregiving, or looking for practical advice to help your family thrive, this is the place for you. Join us as we bring you expert insights, heartfelt stories, and actionable items to support you and your family within this unique generation. Hi, girls.
Hi.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you. This is fun.
I know. I'm excited to actually get caught up with you and learn about your new role.
Yes, me too. It's a fancy one, I feel like.
I know. Yeah.
So good old-fashioned work though, right?
Yeah.
I know. Yeah. Sometimes we have to work, right? Well, I did hear you say, though, in one of your posts or something that this is your dream job.
Yes,
so
legitimately.
Yeah. So introduce yourself and tell us what you're doing these days.
Sure. So Emily Tisdale. I am the executive director for the University of Indianapolis Center for Aging and Community. For short, we just call it CAC.
It's a long title.
It is a super long title. But so the CAC is essentially the research project management consulting arm of UIndy that is dedicated to community and aging specifically. So we're a little bit different in that we're, from a university standpoint, we're not an academic program, as you know, but we do support the research and all of the work that we are passionate about doing as a university through my center, specifically for community and aging. We have two other centers that function similarly to us, but have different focus areas.
Okay.
Got it. So focus area. So then what is your focus area or the CAC's focus area?
So for us, it's community and aging. So it's broad, but it's an intentionally broad statement. So then that way we can support initiatives throughout the space that are focused on community and aging. So aging is the easy part to understand, right? But the community piece talks a little bit more about things like us pursuing an age-friendly university designation. We're only the second, I think, in Indiana to have that designation. And so just kind of looking at, as we all age, how do we maximize those opportunities? What do we look at to make sure that we don't have aging and what we think just in a regular silo, right? So we do different like fall prevention programs and the like, but we do a lot of work like with not-for-profit agencies, with the state organizations and things like that to look at how we are looking at policy, how we're planning to support the aging community, specifically here in Indiana. And then we have projects like in Texas and Tennessee and things like that.
I feel like someone maybe reached out to me a couple months ago about a grant or something that was, I don't even know if it was a grant. It was something where they were focused on, I thought it was for women who were in business, but were specifically trying to work with the aging population.
Oh, cool.
Would that have been something you guys would have been doing? I thought it was University of Indianapolis. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it was someone else. But.
So we work on a lot of projects. So the projects are typically grant funded. So whether it's a grant that we received at CAC and then we pick a partner organization to see it through fruition, or sometimes the organization will get the grant and will hire us to complete the project. So for example, CICOA, Central Indiana Council on Aging, we work with them to do their strategic plan. So it kind of goes both ways, but everything that we do, like when we look at our projects, and that's something the team and I always talk about is, is it in line with all of the initiatives that we want to see moving forward? Because it's really easy to get excited about lots of different things, and healthcare is such a big space. But this way we get to be a little bit more strategic to say, how do we move, those initiatives forward?
Interesting.
Well, speaking of that, it sounds like you're just really trying to stay focused on a specific vision, and so as the new executive director of CAC, can you tell us a little bit about what your vision is going forward with the community on aging and some of your partnerships?
Sure. That's a big question. And I actually have a really big answer for it because I've been thinking about it. Because the funny thing is I've known about CAC before I came here. So I have been adjunct faculty here at UIndy for the past 4 years. But even prior to that, when I was in the provider space and when I was a provider, when I was consulting, I knew about CAC and loved their work. And I just thought it was so cool that there was this company, if you will, that could focus on all these initiatives, but from a big picture standpoint. You know, they didn't have skin in the game because they're a payer or a provider or anything like that. They really were just focused on aging and community initiatives and how they can help move that forward. So I always thought it was the coolest thing. I met their, she was probably the founding executive director. She was here for, I think, 20 years, right? So our center will be 25 next year. So we're planning big things already. But she was here for 20 years and I met her, you know, in the course of it, learned about CAC. And I thought, what a cool job. What a cool lady, you know, and how she gets to sit in a specific seat that is not related to payers. And that's always the right? So what we were looking at as a team is looking at how do we not be the best kept secret. So even though we've been around for almost 25 years. There's been an extensive amount of projects. You can look at our website and you can see the involvement that CAC has had with the Department of Health, with COVID preparation and things like that. But no one really knows that we exist, right? And so it's not so much that I want us to be known as existing, you know, just for the fame and fortune of it, right? But to make sure that when people think of supporting those initiatives, like from start to finish, that they think of us. So my boss is Chris Ploff, who is our provost. And I always tell him I don't quite have the same probably lens of our success as an executive director, because I always think about students and I think about healthcare leadership and the things I've gone through as a professional. And I told him that my wildest dreams when I retire, when we have our 50-year anniversary, right? I'd like for us to have national level presence as a Center for Aging and Community, doing the research and basically partnering with organizations to move those initiatives forward. However, I do it from the lens of if we are positioned as an excellent, you know, leader in aging and community, that means that there's a stronger likelihood that students will look at UIndy as a place to learn for healthcare programs.
Sure.
So that's been a thing of mine, you know, before I became an adjunct instructor here, is probably from seeing the turnover that we have in, you know, senior care, for example, and in health.
Right.
So selfishly, I know I'm going to eventually get old and get sick. So I want to do my little piece of growing that pipeline back up to where, you know, in this capacity, I can have CAC be better known. And then as a byproduct of that, hopefully attract better student, you know, enrollment into our healthcare programs at UIndy.
Oh, that's
it. Definitely.
That's it. Yeah. Just some national presence and
you dream big, right? If we don't
gotta dream big.
Go big or go home. That's what they say.
Yeah.
So what are some of the main initiatives that you are focused on? Can you give us a couple of your top things that you're really wanting to, who you're working with and trying to, you know, get those things built up? How can we get involved? Maybe there's something we don't even know about.
Sure. You know, the cool thing is with where we're at as a center, the team here, we have a really long-standing team, which is kind of cool. So we have a team member that's almost been here for 20 years. The next one has been here for 13, and then 7, and then 2 years and 2 years. And then I'm here in 2.5 months, right? So some really great history of folks that are in the center and then part of our university ecosystem. So they kind of know the way of the world and how it runs here. And they've seen kind of the gamut of projects. So I would say, like, stepping in, a couple of things that have kind of stood out to me is we work, like I was saying, Central Indiana Council on Central Indiana Council on Aging, right?
On aging,
Yes,
right?
okay.
That's right.
Yeah. Worked with them on their strategic plan. So we've been doing that for a number of years. So looking at very specific metrics that's in alignment with their strategic plan, measuring that, doing the research on it, and then presenting it. So we just got done with that portion earlier, I think this month or last month. And then one that is a little bit different is we are engaged with the city of Austin, so Austin, Texas, and we're doing their older adult quality of life studies. So we have a subcontractor company that we work with to do some of the community engagement, stakeholder engagement on the ground in Austin. But we are leading all of the research initiatives and taking that data and helping inform the city of Austin on the types of services and supports that older adults in Austin are interested in. So it's like some really interesting key takeaways that we have come along the way. So they have buckets like healthcare, transportation, et cetera, that as a city, they
housing,
fund and
housing on there. Yeah.
Food's on there, which was interesting. You know, when we think about some of the pillars that they have buckets of money for. But in this process, for example, we learned that not everyone, and maybe given the current climate, is keen on participating in a self-voluntary survey, you know, for all the various reasons. Yeah. So midstream, we've had to really, we went in with one idea, our subcontractors did too. And then as we get further along in the process, we were finding that the research was being skewed to a certain zip code, population, socioeconomic status, right? So that's not really a good survey. It's not good research if we don't have it, totally balanced. So we had to pivot a little bit to make sure that we were reaching all of the constituents that they want served. So very cool stuff. I mean, I'm geeky, so I like that stuff. But I think it just kind of goes to show we're working with an organization versus the commissioners of the city to look at what aging means in different spaces.
So
interesting.
Yeah, I know Fishers. I live in Fishers, and they did. It's been a few years ago where they started kind of like a group of people that are trying to go out and gather that information as far as what the city needs to help with the aging population. So I don't know, their transportation was a huge one. Housing is a huge one. And I know they're building a brand new 55 and older community right downtown Fishers because they found out people wanted to be able to walk to restaurants. They wanted the accessibility. So I think it's really cool that a lot of places are really trying to put a focus on that and figure out how we can better support the aging population.
I think it's great because the three of us are probably in a similar age range where we can look at what's happening and be I look at some of those 55 plus apartments and what they're nearby. I'm I would absolutely move in there.
Yeah,
I know. Yeah. Mom, how old do you have to be to move in here?
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool that we can see it develop. And so I think our stories as, an older adult generation, when we get to that time, will look a little different than what we have now. So I think from a CICOA perspective, it's interesting to kind of see what people are interested in funding, what initiatives are getting people's attention. And it's all it's changing. The whole reframing aging is a real thing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I want to ask you more about that. But first, I want to ask you, I know this, I'm asking a lot of these questions for our audience, and Sarah's the same. And CICOA. So how, from an adult child's perspective, someone who's in the sandwich generation, that's the title of our podcast, how can CICOA and some of these other initiatives be supportive when for someone in that role?
You know what? My favorite thing about our AAAs and specifically with CICOA, because I would be in their geographic territory, is the ADRC, Aging and Disability Resource Center. And it's basically like, if you have a need and if you don't know where to start, I always tell people start there, because their options counselor will be able to talk to you and understand what's going on and help, move you to the right area. So it's just kind of like this great hotline, honestly, in my opinion, that starts a lot of like the informed conversations that we have to have when we're like facing those hard decisions or these new things that are happening to us or our loved ones. So the ADRC is a great place. I think the hard part sometimes for our older adults and then their family caregivers now it's not just CICOA that does all of the management of the benefits, and now we have ways. And so, it could still start with the ADRC, and, I am sure if it was appropriate, they would, they would ask you what managed care entity. So for us, Anthem, United Healthcare, and Humana, and they would direct you to call them. But at least it's a place to start.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah, I know. We hear from so many people, where do we even start?
Wow.
And, for us that work kind of in the senior industry, even though we're real estate brokers, I feel like, we're in the senior industry. You can start with any of us. And if we don't know the answer, the good thing is that we know so many people that we can, direct people to. So, yeah. Okay, so the other question I had was your grant revenue is a couple million, I think, right, from your website. So how does the center prioritize and select those projects that you kind of undertake?
That's like the question of the day, like for us as a team too, right? Because
you mentioned there's so many great ideas, right? I mean, we can talk offline, but I've got a friend who's developing a project for Alzheimer's, and I mean, there's just so many great ideas. How do you select what you're going to get behind?
I would say a lot of it, and again, aging community, I feel like it's like such a big, like nebulous term, but if we look at it in the context of like, is it moving the needle in the right direction, right? Now, don't get me wrong. We love all grants. If you've got a grant, we will figure out how to spend it and move that needle forward.
Right.
So do not get me wrong on that one. But we do have a lot of folks that come to us like with ideas of how to do this or how do we get this across the finish line. And it really is kind of on a case-by-case basis. I would say one of the questions I had to obviously answer very honestly, like when I was going through the like meet and greets and the interview process for this role is, do you have any grant experience? Nope, not a lick. But
I was just thinking as you were talking, like what a great place for you based on what I know about your history, all of your consulting and entrepreneurship experience. This is the perfect place for you. And surely there's somebody at the CAC that does, have grant experience, right? You don't have to know everything about everything.
That's right. I totally agree. And it's kind of like teaching. It's like, I've never taught this class, but you give me the textbook and you give me 20 minutes and I'll get you a syllabus. You know what I mean? But it all comes from like life experience and professional experience.
Yeah.
But I told them, nope, not a lick. But what I can tell you is I've written extensive business proposals that I had to sell, and the company was using private funding and not grant funds, right? So I had to, in a way, I think there's definitely some adjacent workflows when we think about work that I had to do as a consultant to convince people that my idea as a project would help get them to the finish line. And please spend $1 million. I don't know, not $1 million.
You're still asking for money,
based on an idea. So funny enough, they have. So right after I started, we have something here at UIndy called Faculty Academy, and so every other year it flip-flops between a writing intensive, which they do over the summer while the staff or faculty is officially off, right? And so if they have any writing projects, it's supported time to be able to do that. This year, incidentally, it's called Grant School because our faculty, part of some of the metrics that they are measured on is, publications, moving studies forward, which they will need grant money for, right?
Yeah.
University is granting them to do like a specific maybe project to enhance their credentials and to enhance their learning, which will go to our students. So they would have to find a grant to fund whatever idea they have.
Their project. Yeah.
Right. So it is helpful for our faculty to go through Faculty Academy. And I thought, hey, can I do Faculty Academy too? Because
absolutely.
And it's definitely different from what faculty would have to undergo from a grant writing process. Initially, they did not, it was only for faculty, but clearly staff needed it. So they opened it up, and I'm in grant school. But interestingly too, my first, they call it an LOI, a letter of intent, to apply for this grant. So I said to the team, there was one, and I'm like, I'll try it. Give it to me. I'll give it a whirl. We'll see what happens. It can't be that hard, right? I'm in grant school. I have all of you guys to look at this. So I've put the finalized touches on it, along with the keen eye of my very experienced team. And we'll be submitting the first LOI on tomorrow. I think I have some time blocked out to officially submit that. So fingers crossed. We'll see how it goes.
That's exciting.
I'm sure it's just
asking people for money.
Yeah. And I'm sure it'll go well, and it'll be just the first of many that you get to be involved.
Let's hope. We're gonna on that, Sara, because I'm after a while, developing this idea, you get kind of attached to it, because this particular one, usually the LOI is pretty simple, and you ask for endorsements from the partner organization. So for us in this particular project, I'm asking for endorsement from the Indiana Department of Health, and then the Division for Mental Health and Addictions. And so we can do all the great work. However, our reach is not the same as the divisions and the Department of Health, right? So we need that endorsement and that partnership to disseminate whatever we do with their constituents or any stakeholders, right? That they have access to that we as a center would not. So this guy is 7 pages long, y'all. I'm not even, I was this is the first one I signed up for. They're it'll be easy after that. I'm well, praise the Lord, because that was a lot of stuff.
Wow. Yeah, I was just going to say.
That doesn't happen, because I'm this is 7 pages of my life. Hours.
Of
this proposal.
It's almost like a founder presenting to a bunch of venture capitalists. Asking for money. So, so that's what I was going to ask you. There's so many organizations and nonprofits, particularly in Central Indiana. I feel just from serving on Rotary. I mean, there's so many nonprofits. Right? What are some of your who are some of your key partnerships, if you can share, and how do those partnerships enhance your ability to stay focused on that community and aging?
Yeah. IDOH, Indiana Department of Health, obviously is a huge one for us. We have engaged with them on multiple projects. So one of the ones that came, before me was working with the Indiana National Guard to help prepare for staffing during COVID, which is bananas, right? That is such a big task. And so we worked with them in tandem on that, and, different initiatives. So they're a big one for obvious reasons, but then Division of Aging, Division of and Addictions. That is a little bit newer. We have not done any specific collaborations, but that's one that I specifically want us to engage in, to look at senior mental health, because I did not know this until I got in this role. But when you think about the population that has the highest rates of suicide, did you know it's seniors?
I had no idea.
Bananas to me.
Yeah.
So we do a lot.
I would have thought it was younger for sure.
Yeah,
well,
I do too.
The increase of alcoholism and addiction is just getting worse and worse too.
So we have lots of mental health issues, substance use disorders. We have issues with just the loneliness factor and things like that, all seniors.
Yeah.
But at least in my lifetime and in my professional life, it's always been more health related stuff.
Sure.
And social, less social health factors.
Yeah.
So in baby's first LOI that I'm turning in tomorrow here, I specifically wanted obviously to engage with Department of Health, but then also with DMHA, the Mental Health and Addictions Division, to make sure we're looking at it robustly. So like, long story short, my dream, and if it gets like, seriously, I don't know how these people do it. Like, they write 7 pages of their life and they're like, sorry, we don't like your idea enough. So that's the reality. But what I want is basically an initiatives resource hub. So any dementia related thing we can start combining. So if it didn't get funded, right? Does someone else not get funded? And then now we have 2 groups with similar initiatives that maybe we can pursue a bigger funding populations, right? Tons of initiatives, no one singular place to say, did someone do this before? Or how do we build on this, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
But DMHA, our mental health division, certainly needs to be part of that conversation, right? Because if you think about some of the misunderstandings and the misdiagnosis with dementia and Alzheimer's, it starts with mental health, and there's confusion that people have on what that looks like.
Yeah.
So key partners there. I'm going to work on a AAA, so our area agency on aging, like our CICOAs. So we have 16 counties. I think we have 15 counties or 15 service areas, and we have 16 AAAs, or the other way.
Yeah.
But I'm doing a AAA tour just to kind of understand the different, they all look so different. Like here, all of us in Marion County, we use CICOA, and the breadth of what they do and how like all encompassing they are, but they don't all look like CICOA.
Are you going to go to all of them?
I'm going to go to all of them.
Wow. Emily is on tour.
No. So it's kind of cool.
Wow.
Like, never in other positions would I've had the ability to, or reason to look at it from a picture to see how we all integrate.
That's interesting. That would support your 7-pager.
I know.
Pulling all of that together. And we certainly have a mental health crisis. And Sara and I talk about this a lot. I mean, we support aging where our clients are, where you feel most comfortable. But if it's at the detriment to your health, including mental health, we want folks to be aging safely, both physically and mentally.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
That's such a piece.
I know. I've been having that conversation with a couple I'm working with now, because one of them has some significant health decline kind of stuff. And I'm like, it'd just be nice to make sure you're in a community that you're familiar with, comfortable with, and have support around you if and when, the other one passes, like you're not by yourself in your home. Yeah. I think that's, I don't know. It makes me sad to think about that sometimes. Like,
I know. I agree. I think like keeping those stories close, I think that's what keeps us in the industry. I always laugh. I tell you, like, we went these industries where we don't have like free hotel night perks or free flight.
No, that's not happening.
It's not like you get like rent free when we move into our like posh assisted living. So it is those stories though that kind of keep you grounded. And I think I think people giggle when I say it's my dream job, and I'm like, no, I'm not even kidding. Like, this is the best place for me, because I think just the entrepreneurial side of me and just the way that maybe I can help bring it here. Like, I have way more ability to bring those initiatives to fruition with UIndy and CAC behind my back than being able to do it on my own. But it's those stories that move us, right? It doesn't matter what we do. It's like, you think about, I still remember some of the residents that I worked with, opening some of the senior living communities, and they never leave me. I wonder where they're at, but the stories, but this is what gets you sucked in.
Yeah, it's true.
We'll take a 37-second commercial, but when we come back, I wonder if you can think of one of your favorite stories.
Oh, I have some.
Oh, don't we all? All right, we'll come back. The Sandwich Generation podcast is brought to you by Indy Real Estate Experts. We're a real estate brokerage dedicated to helping seniors and their loved ones downsize with less stress and more support. And we're proud advocates of dignified aging. From sorting and packing to selling and settling in, our team handles every detail so you don't have to. Whether you're helping a family member transition or planning ahead for yourself, we're here to guide you every step of the way. Learn more at downsizingindy.com, where compassion meets real estate. Okay, stories. We love stories, and I think it helps the audience connect with us too. So before the break, we said, can you think of one of your favorite stories? And if you have more than one, we can have story time too.
Okay, so the one I think of all the time when I think about like why I ended up like loving senior care, right? Because I was in hospitals and whatnot, but you don't get to know them in hospitals the way you get to in senior care.
Mm-hmm.
So I was on the opening team of one of the communities out on the west side, and she was one of our very first move-ins. She lived in one of the like garden homes, so on the campus, but she had her own walkway and her own front door and things like that. And she was ornery and hilarious and funny. And so I remember one day she called me, and she obviously had all my numbers because I was one of the first employees, opening it.
Yeah.
And she had all my numbers, and she called me one day and she's like, Emily, you need to come over to my cottage. And I'm like, okay, sure. What's going on? And she says, I smell something and it smells like it's burning. And I was like, oh no, and I'm like, well,
Right.
June, I said, let me call Monty, who was our maintenance director. I said, let me call Monty to go check it out for you. That sounds really important. And she goes, no, I want you to come. Not unusual, right? So I was like, okay.
You're like, but I'm not a maintenance person.
I don't know what to do if I smell the same thing with
Right.
you.
Yeah.
So I go to her cottage. So just kind of walk across campus. And I said, Miss June, I got here as soon as I could. What's going on? And she's not a thing, honey. Have a seat. I made some cookies. Let's watch a show.
Oh my gosh.
Stop.
Just wanted someone to hang out with.
We're amazing. I was like, oh, Miss June, I'm like, you're going to get me in trouble. And she's like, don't worry about it. I'll call David myself and tell him that you're with me, my executive director.
That's
So she is a
amazing.
doll. And so the same gal, I don't have any, these are probably the ones that stay top of mind.
Yeah.
Just pure hilarity. So this was like years ago because I got pregnant with Brady. Brady's now 17. Okay, just to give you an idea. And so Fran was her buddy that they met living in the senior community, but Fran was in assisted living. So she was part of the larger community. And so so our independent living folks could join assisted living for the activities and the meals and things like that. So her and Fran would lunch together and stuff. And so I would go walk through the building, slowly over time, my belly is getting bigger and bigger. They all knew I loved me some Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning, I just thought he was amazing. And so Fran says to June, whispers to her, and June tells me this, and she's dying. She goes, well, Fran came to me. She goes, I think Emily's pregnant. And June was like, yeah, I know. She's pregnant. And Fran's like, huh, that's crazy. And I don't know why Fran thought it was so crazy. And then June says, you know what's even crazier? It's Peyton Manning's.
Stop.
I'm not even kidding. So she tells me this, and she is seriously bent over, cackling, whapping at her knee.
June is a troublemaker.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I would love to have seen Fran's reaction.
Oh my God. And she's like, oh, it is. And she's like, no. So she came clean. I was like, you know what? If the news channel comes here and says Peyton Manning has an illegitimate baby, you're going up on the screen.
That's how rumors get started. Senior communities.
I love that.
So yeah,
If you're listening, Peyton Manning, we know it's not. It's just a joke.
I know. And then so there's those funny ones, and then there's definitely some terrible stories that are probably not good for podcast sessions about juicers and how that is a hot commodity, that if you want to attract the very few males that are in our senior living communities, you get you a juicer. and
Oh.
you inadvertently
Interesting.
steal someone's boyfriend. I don't even know.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Sarah worked in a community. She knows some of these juicy
Yeah.
stories.
Yeah,
too.
you know.
Oh, yeah. I've seen people coming out of the wrong doors where I'm like,
I don't want to see.
I don't
Like, just
know
keep
that you were
walking.
supposed to be staying the night in that room, but okay. You know,
Right. Does your
Really
daughter
fun.
know
Oh
that
my
you stay
God.
the night in that room?
yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. We could write
Okay.
a book 10
Yes,
times over,
right.
I'm sure.
That's right.
Many
Probably
books.
way
Yeah.
spicier than what is it? 50 Shades series.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah. Right. Right.
But it would be 50 Shades of Gray.
Actually.
Silver.
Yeah.
Let's 50 Shades
Yeah,
of Silver.
that's right.
Silver.
Let's
Yeah, I agree. That's perfect. You should write that.
That's
So many
funny.
stories. We'd definitely have to change the names of a lot to protect
To
Yes,
protect
the
yeah.
innocent. Yeah.
That's right.
All right. So looking ahead, based on your time there at CAC, what are some emerging trends that you see in aging and community that you're excited about, and that you can share now with us?
I will say I'm talking about this a lot, like in my meetings and then just presentations. This is a topic we keep coming on. It's the whole reframing aging thing.
Yeah.
So for example, like our senior centers or adult day centers and things like that, where we're expecting seniors and older adults to congregate, doesn't look like what it used to look like. So I gave a presentation, I think probably it was like 2 weeks after I started. And it was to the Senior Center Coalition of Indiana. And
Okay.
I literally probably didn't have to say anything else or present any other statistics except for the one slide that literally was split in half. And you've probably seen something similar where it had the Golden Girls on one side and the Sex and the City ladies on the other. And so if you compare the ages of the Golden Girls and then the Sex and the City reboot, they're very similar in
They're
age.
the same age.
Yeah, which is wild because, like, I don't know about you, like I see my aging looking like, the Sex and the City ladies.
Yeah.
They're independent. They have very full careers. They live on their own. They do their thing. Versus kind of like the flowery moo-moos and the shoulder pads and the cohabitation with your girlfriends, right? And then if you remember, like Blanche was like getting around and, people were like, oh, how dare she, right? Like it was,
She's the Samantha. She's the Samantha.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we could connect
empowered, right?
which one was which. Yeah, that's funny.
That's great. But reframing aging. So then we say, like, what does programming look like to attract that? Like, we don't just do bingo, we need to do pickleball classes. And so looking at how, like, the way you and I would look at the things we would be interested in as we age is probably the stuff we need to start putting together programming wise for today's seniors.
Sure.
Yeah.
Which is weird to say, but it's really quite honestly the truth. And we're all kind of at that age where we're in the middle of our careers where we are making those programming decisions, right?
Yeah.
So if we're interested in it, what I'm telling everyone is there's a very strong likelihood that your seniors that are, that if you want to increase membership or patronage to your service, to your organization, whatever the case may be, it probably looks closer to you than you may think.
I'm thinking about the things that I'd be interested in that, like, my parents would be interested in, or seniors, or how we could implement this in our own business. But we certainly do not see ourselves as the Golden Girls. Like, we don't see ourselves as how old we actually are, which is one of the reasons in our marketing we don't put pictures of old people, in our marketing, because they don't relate to that.
No, not at all.
That concept. So, and I don't know about you, or when you had your last class reunion, or when you see somebody out that's, you went to school with or whatever, and you're like, holy cow, we're the same age and I do not look like that,
Well, I remember when I turned, I think it was 45, like it was a very recent birthday. And I had pictures from when my dad turned 45. Maybe it was
Yeah.
even 40. It was probably 40 when it was like one of those like milestone ages where you do like a big thing. And I remember looking at those, and I remember being young and looking at my dad and being like, damn, 40's old.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You know, and so here I was celebrating that birthday, and, you know, several years since now, but yeah, we just don't see ourselves that way. So like when we look at programming and the stuff that we want to offer,
Yeah.
like, I do not want to play bingo.
No,
Just
I mean,
no.
maybe every
I
once
want
in a
that,
while it would be fun, but I don't
Yeah,
need to do
but
it
not
3
every
times a
day.
week. Yeah.
No.
That made me think of my husband and I had found this little video on Instagram or something. It was the New York Giants football team, which I have no idea why that was on my Instagram, because I am not a New York Giants fan. But anyways, it probably was the NFL. The NFL popped up, and it was you know, they do all these little social media clips with teams now where they ask them questions and that kind of thing. So it was all the rookies and some of the younger guys, like, well, they're all younger now, I'm realizing.
Ouch.
Yeah. They were asking them what age is old. Like, when were they born? If someone, at what age, like what year would someone be born in that you would now think
to be
that they're
consider them
probably old?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think the first guy said 1960. And I was like, okay. Every single person after that was like, oh, I don't know, like the 80s, 1985, 1987. Yeah, if you were born after or before 1987, you're probably pretty old.
We're like, this interview's over.
Yeah, and I was like, oh my gosh, you know, I was like, okay, well, we apparently to the young folks definitely are old. So
that's actually better than what I thought you were going to say. I thought you were going to say like 1990 something, but I was going to be highly offended. But yeah, the 80s were great.
Great. I know. I'm like
so like with teaching, and Lisa, I've told you this, like we'll do intros at the beginning of all the semesters and things like that. And, you know, I always introduce myself, and, you know, we reached our 20-year wedding anniversary this past spring, and they all look so shocked. And I'm like, how old are you? They're like 20. And I'm like, my marriage is at least as old, if not older.
Yeah.
You. I have been married.
When you were born, I was getting married.
I mean, like, they could be my baby.
I know.
Who knows?
I sat in on a couple of your classes, and I was looking around like, these are like my sons.
Yeah,
all these kids are my son's age. Yeah. So we're old.
I think we're all doing very well, though.
Yeah.
We're doing good.
I think we're doing better than
is leading its way into all the places that the three of us and more would want to be part of. So
which is why we are on. I keep trying to tell people, like, you need to go visit senior communities and check them out, because they have this perception of what they are. And it is not even close to the same. I mean, I did a tour with a client just last week on Friday. We went and toured a couple places, and one of them is a brand new community. And I am telling you, the pool and the pickleball courts and I was like, I could be here. And she goes, yeah, look at those built-in loungers on the sun deck. Like, I'm going to be right there. And I was like,
in my bikini.
I want to be right there with you too. Yeah.
I wonder if like our generation is going to fight the like move as much as the current generation does. Because I'm sorry, you're going to do my laundry and my linens.
And you're going to
I just pop down for food.
Right.
Sign me up.
Whenever
you can sign
I want.
Me up right now. I'm good.
I know.
that would be an interesting study to do.
Like, I know. I'm really curious.
We're Gen Xers. So yeah, what are we going to do? I'm sure some of it has to do with finances, but
definitely.
And I say my company could not exist in another country, because other countries don't. They bring their family members into their house with them and live, intergenerationally. And we just, we just don't do that in the United States.
That's a good point.
As much. So anyway, well, okay. So tell us about your website, and are there resources there that our adult children who are watching or listening will find useful?
Yeah, I would say so. So our website is part of the Greater University of Indianapolis website. So it should be uindy.edu/CAC. On there, it's very much focused currently, obviously, like on our consulting work, our project work, and things like that. But there are events on there, like when we hold our falls prevention courses and things like that. So those are coming up. We have a fantastic partnership with Anthem, where we're piloting some fall prevention programs just to see what that looks like as far as kind of reducing, additional cost and comorbidities that happen as a result of falls. And so kind of learning a little bit more about that. Again, some eye-opening statistics, but we have a lot of programs. So last night we just had our first caregiver speaker series. And so we had Elijah Norwood come in, and I played with bongos, y'all.
Nice.
It was in a bigger room, no rhythm there. Okay.
Nice.
But in this room full of like joyful music, you can't hear me mess up, but it was a blast.
Right.
But we're bringing in speakers like that to look at, again, aging differently, combating loneliness. And the one thing that he said that I thought was really interesting, he said, so while you're in this room, in the last 10 minutes while you were learning about drumming, were you anywhere else except for where your 2 feet are right now? And as someone who's always somewhere else, right? And you guys probably are that way too, your moms, because they were always double, just multitasking. And that was like the first time that I was like, I was nowhere else but like right here. So looking at cool ways to age and things like that. So those bits and pieces of information and events are also on the website.
Great.
Oh, nice. Yeah. I'll have to check that out for sure. Well, and we'll make sure we link the website in the show notes so that other people can go find that too.
I'll send you the one directly with like some of the like older adult service event type things. I'll send you that first, and then just the primary website, which has some of the project related like ways we can work together info.
Yeah, I see. I see Center for Aging and Community about your community outreach efforts and things like that. So somebody could start there and find some really helpful information. And again, this is a question more for our audience. We talked about fall prevention a lot, and I want to say that it's a pretty well known thing, but maybe not. Why do we focus so much on fall prevention?
It is one of 3 leading causes for emergency room visits, which is bananas, right? So essentially, when we're looking at some of the things that are like trickle down effects of something, falls is the number 1 preventable one. So, I mean, I just thought it was fascinating. Like, so when you fall, even if you have been totally fine and healthy otherwise, fall, you have, and I can't remember the statistics, so I don't want to quote it wrong, but a ridiculously high percentage that you would develop what's called a comorbidity, or you would have another issue that comes as a result of that fall, which is crazy. So I would imagine it looks something like, I had a fall, now I'm not able to move around. Now, because of my immobility, anything I had wrong with my hip is now exacerbated. Now I need hip surgery, right? So it's like,
or the confidence too. So they fall, the confidence goes down. So then they stop drinking fluids because they don't want to have to get up and go to the bathroom.
So now they're dehydrated.
It just continues to snowball.
Yeah, in all these ways, right? And it is something super simple. So this falls prevention course that we have is actually licensed through the Wisconsin Institute on Healthy Aging or something like that. And it is an evidence-based fall prevention program. And it decreases falls, again, I can't remember the percentages. I should probably know those. But enough to get, our attention here at the CAC that we are taking it through throughout the state. And then again, a partnership specifically with Anthem to do that.
Yeah.
But it's a 7-week course. I had a gentleman come through here. We don't have a lot of seniors rolling through here, right? It's like, it's our faculty and our staff and our students. And his name was Walt, and he was just like, hello, like walking through our office suites. And so he found me and he's like, I'm looking, and he was looking for one of my team members. And he says, I'm Walt, the fall guy, last name. And I said, okay, Walt. So should I call you Walt or fall guy? He's like, you have to call me Walt now because I went through the stepping on class and I don't fall anymore.
Oh, I love that.
That's it.
That confidence is huge, though.
Yes.
When you don't trust your body, that's a sign that you've got to make a change. Whether it's, moving to a safer area, making your home, fall preventable, or fall preventing your home, whatever it is. So I just wanted to make that point for our audience. A lot of our adult children that we work with are living and working, across the country. They're raising their families and their kids are here, and they don't see this stuff every single day. And so the point of this entire podcast is to help educate them alongside our seniors. So
yeah. That's awesome work, you guys.
Yeah, you too, ma'am.
Yeah.
All righty. Well, thank you so much, Emily. And you want to do the whole spiel, Sara, the whole ending of the podcast?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Emily, for sharing your knowledge and your input. So, yes, next week we'll be back on the sandwich generation. But until then, please make sure you're sharing this with your friends, family, loved ones, anyone that might benefit. Give us some likes, shares, follows, subscribes, all the things on all the platforms. We would love it.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, ladies.